How are we all doing today? My name is David Gugino, and today I'm doing a part 2 of a book. I'm pretty sure you already have seen through the video what part 2 I'm doing today. The part 2 that I'm doing, in case you haven't seen it, is The Men We Need by Brant Hansen. Now, this is one of the best books I've read, but it is honestly the true meaning of what being a man is. God's purpose for the manly, avid indoorsman, or any man willing to show up. So, honestly, it's very, very true. And what I really like about this book is not only does use biblical verses and biblical examples, but he himself is just an average guy who likes some dirty stuff, who's been married to the same woman all his life, has kids, and just realizes that, like, what the deep meaning of what being a man is, not like what you see on the internet with money, women, nice cars, stuff like that. The book here for the second part, and I actually have some deep stuff for you today. So thank you all for watching. I hope you all continue to watch, but listen to what I have here. Listen to this. Food gained by fraud tastes sweet, but one ends up with a mouthful of gravel. There are two reasons this proverb is beautiful. First, because you absolutely need to name your next hip-hop tinged neo-punk band Mouth of Gravel. That's funny. But you already knew this. And secondly, it's just so true. There is this sweet taste at first, then there's a dark turn, and we're left with bitterness and pain. That's how sin works. Always promising, initially exciting, this rush of freedom, and then the punch in the gut. Of course, when Adam and Eve got swindled, they were promised something, and it seemed to them like a better plan than what God was offering. So they went for it. Think about how we commonly destroy our lives based on some version of that swindle. Few people have this plan. I'm going to get addicted to this substance or activity, and I'm going to destroy my life and family with it. No, it always starts with excitement, with a burst of what truly feels life-giving, and then you know, mouth of gravel, and you're by yourself. The enemy, a swindler from the beginning, has a plan. Isolate us, he won't advertise it that way. Isolation never seems to be the goal, but it's always the end result. And then there's Jesus, who is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Paul writes in Colossians 1:17, God's plan is for things to come together under his authority. Real life leads us towards each other, not away. So honestly, that's pretty good. Listen to that. Real life leads us towards each other, not away. And the mouth of gravel example, it is like with, you know what? Instances they think great, they're like, hey, this is great, I have a group of friends to do it with, I feel fine, but then you realize that the bitterness comes along with you continuing to do that substance. It's honestly, working out is a very good healthy habit, but it can become a poor habit when you're obsessed with it and have absolutely no goal to pursue that. So for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger worked out 6 hours a day. If you say, wow, to look like Arnold, I'm going to train 6 hours a day and take the stuff that he did. Well, that's great, but he did that because he had a purpose for it. He was addicted to it, but he did that for a purpose. Now you might think, well, David, I want to do this substance for a purpose to have fun with my friends and try something new. Well, that's stupid. But now, you just need an hour and a half, maybe 45 minutes of just hard training, hard intensity, and then you're done. And that's it. And the reason I bring up working out is because I'm addicted to it, but sometimes I do too much, and sometimes I learn from that when I'm training for a powerlifting competition, but honestly, you do have to think about that though. The enemy, a swindler from the beginning. God has a plan. The enemy has a plan. Isolate us. He won't advertise it that way. Isolation never seems to be the goal, but it's always the end result. So the enemy has that goal. Well, I'm sorry. But you gotta know the enemy is a swindler from the beginning, and the result is isolation. So you gotta think, enemies don't have to be just people. They can be substances, they can be addictions, they can be very poor habits, but just think about that though. The sweet taste, the food gained by fraud tastes sweet, but one ends up with a mouthful of gravel. Proverbs 20:17. So think about that. Now for the next section that we have, and the men we need, this is a little more difficult to follow, but if you have children, this is something that you should know. Like, I do not have any kids, and I'm single, so I guess I'm not even close to having kids, but you want to listen to what I have here. So, listen to what I have here. You can take a kid to 1,000 lessons and offer them the finest tutors, But that's not the objective of a parent. Your main task here is not to impart skills. You do not exist to make your kids marketable to the corporate world. You are here to shape character as securely and fully as you can before you leave home. While my wife and I were sheltering our children, our goal was to create adults who could take on the world. We've always wanted them to know God and be on missions for Him. But that doesn't mean they should be missionaries as children. Childhood is their time to be protected and formed, not sent into battle. It's the time a great prosecutor and gardener will use to allow the precious seedlings to take root. But you might counter, can't you take sheltering too far? Of course you can. You could move off the grid and cut your kids off from relationships with other kids, or intervene to try to protect them from ever experiencing defeat or disappointment. But you know what? I honestly don't see much overprotecting. What I do see is a toxic and pervasive pop culture, a mix of consumerism, violence, and overstimulation that even adults can't handle. Yes, we want kids to be secure, confident adults, so here's the idea. Do you show your kids the real world? Unmediated by pop culture, show them the real world in time, and seasoned and informed by wisdom. Help them to understand from the outset that some things aren't appropriate for them now, but will be in time. If you can afford it, take them out of the country to the developing world. Give them lots of great, usually not modern books. Gradually give them more and more latitude as they demonstrate their own wisdom, with the goal of producing well-formed, free-thinking, independent adults by their late teens. So I know that was a lot, but honestly, when it comes to showing your children the real world, you gotta think, it's the real world. It's like Sylvester Stallone says, the world ain't sunshine and rainbows, it's a mean and nasty place, and it will knock you down and beat you to your knees if you let it. But in this situation, the world's not sunshine and rainbows. It's a mean and nasty place that your children need to know. Hey, people are addicted to this. Teenagers think about this. Young adults like myself care about this and care about that. And if you know what I'm talking about, when you talk with your friends about goals and stuff like that, that's pretty much what it is. And not ambitious. Our world is just simply trying to get by because you have people who don't want to work. You have people who refuse to fix their addictions, and you have people who think their addictions aren't issues, but you also have people who are just expecting life to solve their problems. And honestly, your children need to know, hey, that is not how you get through this world. That is not how you do it. And I also, like he mentions here, you don't have to introduce them to it now, because obviously certain things in our world your children don't need to know about yet. But kind of introduce them as in, like, you know what, son, you pay attention to your surroundings. You pay attention to people who make poor choices. You figure this out by doing this. So honestly, paying attention to detail is mainly the first part of it, which my father told me dozens of times as a young little lad, but I didn't listen to him. But honestly, when it comes to your children and your life, you will have to introduce them to the new world. Sheltering too much is a thing, because your kid will grow up and be some weird, awkward kid that other kids make fun of. Which is fine, because you may grow out of it, and you might realize as a parent, wow, I did something wrong, but it is fixable. Something that I don't have any children, but if I did, I would say, like, the real world is a nasty place, and people need to know that. So think about that. I have is another deep topic, and before I read this topic, listen to what it's about. If you feel meaningless, it might be because you're investing time and energy in meaningless things. That's deep. Listen to what Brand Hansen has to say. Listen to this. Mark this down. You will struggle with feeling meaningless when you choose to invest your time and energy in meaningless things. This is as sure as gravity. I know it from personal experience and lots of it. By the way, I'm not talking about your work. Your work is not meaningless. As we'll discuss shortly, even if our job seems trivial, it's not. It matters to others. It matters to God, and it should matter very much to you. What I'm talking about are things that don't add value to anyone's life. We are created to add value to things. When we are at our best, that's exactly what we're doing. We're making things, we're changing things, and we're improving conditions and situations for the people around us. Those for whom we take responsibility. If I'm engaged only in activities and projects that ultimately yield nothing, I will feel it. If I want to play video games all day, I can. You know what? I will enjoy it while I'm doing it. but there will be a psychological price to pay at the end of the day. Over the course of time, I'm spending significant time entertaining myself. I'll begin to feel ennui, which is a perfect word because, one, it's French, so perhaps you will think I'm cultured, and two, it means listlessness and dissatisfaction that come from not being occupied with anything that matters. So something I mentioned in these videos before and a lot of books that I've read is true wisdom is knowing what matters. And that's what wisdom is. And honestly, like the perfect example here, you could play video games all day and have a great time, but after a while it's going to be meaningless because you're going to be like, wow, I'm wasting my life away playing this game. And honestly, that's what it was like with my life years ago. I would work out and then watch movies all day, which was great, and I loved it. But then I realized the Lord was telling me, you got to get out of the house and meet people. And now I have a whole bunch of friend groups I hang out with. I learned how to fight. I'm competing in powerlifting. I'm not just training. So now my life has gotten significantly better. Because when it comes to meaningless things, you can watch a movie. Or you can have a day out of a month where you just watch movies and do nothing. Because I do believe that we as humans need to have one day where we do nothing and worry about nothing. But you can't do that every day, because you have to have some significance and purpose in your life. And you might think, well, why, David? Why do we need that? Because the Lord put you on earth for that reason, and that is the reality of life. That is how you get through life, with significance and purpose. Because, like you mentioned with the video game thing, you could be happy with that, doing that all your life, but before you know it, eventually your spouse or your GF is going to get sick of you playing video games all the time and not doing anything. And then your kids, if you have children, are going to be like, wow, my dad doesn't do anything. He just works 9 to 5 and plays video games all the time. Like, it becomes not only meaningless, but it becomes unattractive. You don't want unattractive habits like that. And honestly, what he said with ennui, it's listlessness and dissatisfaction that come from not being occupied with anything that matters. So you have to do things that matter. You have to have a purpose in life that matters. And the other thing that he says here is you don't want to add value to things that aren't valuable. So the example with the video games, you might be like, it makes you happy, it's easy, it's relaxing, it hurts your brain but doesn't hurt your body. Well, it will if you're sitting too long, but just honestly think about that. You don't want to be creating useless value, or just because honestly it won't make sense. Working out is a great habit and a great hobby, and you might think, well, yeah, but you're sore, you can hurt yourself. Well, if you train smartly, you can have longevity, and you can get in decent shape. And also, since it's hard, get this, since it's hard, you'll probably not want to do it for hours, whereas with video games, you'll want to do that for hours. So if you think about that, you'll have more time to do things because you're taking video games not completely out of your life, but that's also where discipline comes in. Play an hour of video games, just 1 hour. Watch an hour or 2 hour movie and stop there. So honestly, disciplining your meaningless habits is part of it, but also adding purpose and significance to your life is the main course of this, is the main thing of this section in this book. And not having meaningless habits. So there's that happy medium there, but I want to thank you all for watching this video. I know I went a little more on this topic, but the takeaway for this video is do not invest your time and energy in meaningless things. Find purpose. Do something different with your life, but do not invest your time and energy in meaningless things. I want to thank you all for watching this video. Become the men we need, and happy Memorial Day. This is the Men We Need, and I hope you all have a great day and a great holiday. Thank you all for watching.